Hey everyone, I'm doing my second song inspirations. This month I'm doing Eastbound by popular vote. And I'm excited. We're on our last day of tour for the year. We're in Salina, Kansas. We're heading home tomorrow for the holidays to be with our family. But let's talk about Eastbound. And so this one's kind of interesting in the same way that Devil's Waltz is, that it's also a story, but it has a bit more metaphor than Devil's Waltz. Devil's Waltz was just a story, and Eastbound is a story, and wrapped in there is, something I'm trying to say or feel or express. So writing this song was kind of a long process. I started writing it the first year that we started the band, and what happened was after the summer where we did our first gigs in 2015, I was hanging out with my friend Max, who plays cello, and we were hanging out and jamming and having a good time, and he started playing this little chord progression, this little on a ukulele, and we started jamming on it, and I just remember him saying, like, oh, I just really picture a ship or an ocean, and that's the imagery I keep having, is the ship and this ocean. And we recorded some of our ideas for that. It wasn't until about a year later that I looked back at the voice memo that I had taken of us jamming that, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna write this song. So I sat down and wrote it, starting in November probably of 2016, and I was, read a bunch of the song, getting really excited about it, and then in January of 2017, Tori and I went out to this little vacation. We stayed in this cabin, and I remember we wrote the bridge there, and this was just a few weeks before her first official show with the band, so we were out on vacation and staying in this little cabin in January, and it was really just, I remember I finished both Eastbound and I finished the zoo there as well. So then a few weeks after that, Tori and Sophia and Noah, who was playing banjo with us at the time, sat down and wrote the rest of it, and we premiered, started playing it on our first tour to South by Southwest, which was really, really fun. I would definitely say this song was kind of what started us thinking of ourselves as a vocal-centric band. It was our first song that we all wrote as, this four-piece, and after Tori joined the band, and these big three-part harmonies and stuff. So I feel like that's kind of where this idea of us being a vocal band started, was in Eastbound. Now, because I got the idea from my friend Max, and he wanted, it to be about the sea, and I really wanted to hold to that. And so I wanted to write a story about these two brothers that go out to sea, and they have this adventure, and all this stuff happens. So that's kind of where it started, and so we'll get into the story of kind of what's happening in the story, and honestly what I was trying to say. It's going to get, I feel like, a little bit more personal than Devil's Waltz was, but I hope you enjoy hearing about it. And once again, I think that a lot of good art is open to interpretation. So if this song has meant something else to you, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. I think there's just what I was thinking when I was writing it, and then, what you were feeling or what you gathered for it in it. If it differs from what I'm going to be talking about, I think that's, I think that's good. I think that's what art should be, is open to interpretation. Before I get into the lyrics, I want to talk a little bit about the musical inspirations behind this song. And so one of the main people I was listening to at the time when I wrote it was this Norwegian singer called Sondre Lerche, and he's one of my biggest songwriting inspirations, especially his album, his soundtrack that he did for the movie Dan in Real Life, which is one of my favorite movies, and he did the soundtrack for it. And actually, it was also the first movie that Tori and I watched together. But that soundtrack is a huge, huge inspiration to me writing-wise. And the first song on that, and kind of like the theme of the soundtrack, is this song called To Be Surprised, and it's one of my favorite songs of all time. I took some of the chording and that kind of stuff from that, and, because when we started it was that E, and one thing I, have the tendency to do, and is that whenever I play an E, I always change the A to the A major 7, just because I love that sound so much. I just felt like it gave it a little bit more of an ethereal feel. You know, but that's definitely very inspired by Sandra Lerche. And then another band that I probably originally picked it up from was Fleet Foxes. Fleet Foxes was one of my bands that got me into folk music, and they are notorious for doing that E to that A major 7, and it's just a really beautiful move. And so those two bands definitely inspired this song and some of my chord choices in that. And I think probably the first song I ever learned with that move is the song Ragged Wood by Fleet Foxes, the one that goes, I remember that kind of being like the first song that I learned in E that was, it's so many open strings that it just has that really full sound. And so I added that A major 7 to give it a little bit more ethereal sound, and then I also decided to use this B chord. I don't know where that came from, but it really gives it just a little bit more character, I feel like. So it became this. And then I wanted to give it a little bit more pep, so I just changed, where the chords change. And so I kind of had my main chord progression there. And that's kind of, a few of the artists that really inspired, I feel like, the sound of this. Even though it tends to be a little bit more of an aggressive song than either of those artists tend to write. And so, you got that. It really started out and it eventually became like that. Alright, let's dig into the lyrics a little bit. The first lyrics are, bring me that horizon, let me hear the call of sirens, I won't go to them, for I have better things in mind, with the sea in front, the sea behind, and the wild, wild, wild wind whipping on my shoulders. So that first line, bring me that horizon, it's obviously a little bit of a tip of the cap to Pirates of the Caribbean. That's actually a line from there, and so I just wanted to put a little reference to that. I thought that would be fun. So someone is talking, and they're heading out to sea, and they're ready for adventure, and they're so set on taking the sea, or on their adventure, or their travel, whatever it is, whatever they're looking for, that they can't even be distracted by the call of sirens. They can't be bogged down. They are completely focused in on what's out there, and so, just that little mocking of, let me hear the call of sirens, I won't go to them. Then that second verse is, in the sea we have no name, we are brothers, we're the same, but we hear differently. Both strong in our youth, the exception is I've heard the truth, and all I want is you to hear it too. And so, obviously there are two brothers, they're going out to sea, they're going out on this adventure. I kind of wrote that because I think when you're doing something together, you're searching for something like truth or hope, or you're connecting to another person in that way, I think universally there's a brothership or a sistership or a siblingship or whatever you want to call it, of like just connection in that way. And so these two brothers are going out to sea, and there's this bond between them of both deeply wanting to find truth or hope, and that's kind of what the song is about. And so the perspective of it is that one of the brothers is kind of telling the story, and he's seen hope, and he just desperately wants his brother to also feel hope. And I feel like that's basically the basis of the song right there. And you kind of, hear what's happening, and then kind of goes down to that first chorus, which I think is the point of the song. It's like, do you know what you're looking for? Do you know what you're looking for? Do you know what you're searching for? Sometimes you're looking for something in your life, you're searching for something in your life, and I sometimes feel like I'm looking for something and I don't even know what I'm looking for. And so this idea of like they're going out on this adventure to look for something, and it's like, do they even know that's kind of what the chorus is about, and I mean, that's what the song is gonna try to figure out, is do we, you know what we're looking for? Do we know what we're searching for? And then we go into that first violin melody. And every good ship song, ocean song needs a good violin melody. Give it a little, some sea vibes. And so we come back into that second verse, which is, we've left behind the shore and come knocking on the sea's front door in hopes that she will take us where she's going. Will she take us to the east? Is that where we'll find the feast? Either way we will follow where she's flowing. I mean, if you are a C.S. Lewis fan, you've probably realized that that's a reference to, the Chronicles of Narnia or the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Obviously, Aslan always comes to the east, and at the, the end of the Dawn Treader, Reepicheep goes to Aslan's. They go all the way to the east, and he goes into Aslan's country or paradise. So, question is, are we headed east? Are we looking for paradise? What are we looking for? We're always proving what we know, that we can face the sea and return home. And in our heads just screaming, we are not alone, we are not alone, we are not alone, we are not alone. Please don't let us be. And so what I'm writing there about is kind of just sometimes how we present differently on the outside than what we're feeling. And in the context of that song, it's like, we're gonna conquer the sea. It's this triumphant thing. We're gonna go out, face the sea, return home. And then in their minds, it's, I'm not alone, I'm not alone, I'm not alone, I'm not alone. And you kind of see that breakdown from, we are not alone, we're not alone, we're not alone. Please don't let us be. And there is this question in there. And I really feel that way a lot of times in my actual life of, I'm trying to present success as a musician or as a good friend or as a good, being good family. And it's like, I'm presenting as like confident and trying to do these things. And honestly, that's how I feel inside a lot. It's just like, I hope I'm not alone. So I feel like I started writing this song for a friend, but it's like really, it's also just like a message for myself is what I've realized in the past few years. We go back, into the chorus and the violin melody, and we get to the third verse, which is, I can see what's in your mind, look ahead, let go of what's behind. That storm will take you over the side, and I'll reach down and pull you out. Even though we're both sure to drown, maybe overboard is just a different route. Yeah, just like what I was saying, it's like sometimes you go to, I don't know if you've ever done that thing where you go to give someone advice and really like, you're giving somebody else the advice that you should be taking for yourself. And I feel like kind of that's what Eastbound has become to me, is, that whole line is, stop looking behind you and trying to, and looking at the past. You gotta be in the present. You gotta look to the future and live in the present to really find something. Because if you're not doing that, what you're really doing is you're running from something, not, running towards something, which I think is a much healthier thing to do. And the second part that, and I'll reach down and pull you out, is like, this idea of like, I love you and I will sacrifice to love you. That's what sacrificial love looks like. It's, I will reach over the side and I will try to pull you out and I will try to pull you up, even if, I have to sacrifice something, even if we both go over. And I think that's, that's what family is a lot of the time. Maybe overboard is just a different route. Maybe down sometimes is the direction you have to go to come back up. I don't know, reaching the bottom or facing your fears or whatever that looks like, is maybe sometimes it's like you have to come face to face with those or hit the bottom or come to the end of your rope to actually succeed in the route that you're going for, which I would hope would be peace and love and satisfaction in your life. And so maybe that's the only, hitting the bottom is the only way to get through it, in the case of the song, quite literally. But what we do now, the music here in this next part is really here to represent, the storm, this turmoil. As they go, down, down we go to the bottom, sinking deeper, darker, down we go. siren song, the light is gone. I'll do you wrong. This life is long and I'll do you wrong. And all the things you've thought below, you're not alone, you're not alone. And they both go over and they sink to the bottom, and they kind of have to face this horrible thing, which, I mean, in the context of the story, obviously is falling out of the ship in the middle of the storm and sinking to the bottom of the ocean. And it's, where you really have to face your fears, this idea of sometimes the search just doesn't go as planned, and the things you run from just don't go away. The siren song, the thoughts in your head, people are going to fail you, I'm going to fail you, but I hope you know you're not alone. And I wrote this song, and I feel like it's something easier for me to say to a friend than it is to believe for myself, for sure. The chorus kind of comes back in the middle of that absolute, turmoil, and in that, do you know? And it kind of switches from chaos into energy, First it's just the tremolo, and then it's... and then eventually into just absolute energy into the end of, they're coming up, they're getting to the surface, they've hit the bottom, and they're coming back to the top, they're escaping, they are going to be triumphant, they are going to find hope. So it kind of does, come into this triumphant guitar part as they, they face the depths and return to the surface to keep searching for the truth. And I can see what your life could be if you could just have a little hope. Just took a little hope for my life to look different. I have so much more freedom because I've seen a little bit of truth, and that's kind of that whole, I have seen what you're looking for, I have seen what you're searching for, I have seen what life could be if you could just be free like me. Out of that, the violin solo comes back through, it returns this very triumphant, and, I love Sophie's violin part in this, and I feel like it's so necessary to a good ocean song in that way. And I also added cello when we did the recording for Like Kings, just to kind of reference my friend Max, who had originally inspired me to write the song, and he's a cello player. That was really fun. I like to do little Easter eggs that, even if they're not important to the listener, the audience will never know. They mean, those little things, mean a lot to me in songs, and I love those kinds of little things. So then it slows, and they've returned. And now we must return to see if we really learned, or if the sun just left us burned. The sea treats us well, but if we learn to love ourselves, we can learn to love you. We can learn to love you. And that's, how the song ends, the 3-part harmony. And I wrote this because, honestly, I feel like oftentimes you can't reflect on something that's happening to you in the moment, in the turmoil, in the storm. It's only after the storm, quite literally, has passed that you can come back and you can reflect on what's happened. And so that's kind of the idea of, now we must return to see if we've really learned, or if we just got burned. Did the pain mean anything? Did I learn from it? Was it important? Did I grow? How did it change me? I feel like so many times, so many people have such a dislike for themselves, or at least I do. I think that's something that I would think, universally a lot of people feel. And sometimes what we do, I feel like, is that we distract ourselves from those feelings by trying to focus love on others. On our friends, our family, our strangers, the world, and I do think those things are great. But sometimes I think, at least in my own life, they almost become this selfish way of trying to prove that I'm a good person, and I know it because I've done these things. I've been a good husband. I've been a good friend. I've been a good musician. I've been good to the environment, and I only know that I'm a good person because of those things, and not because I know it deep down, or that I feel it deep down. And I think those good things can be selfish things in that way if you're not showing yourself the same sort of respect. I usually do try to have compassion for myself, and when I do, I can love others without, keeping tabs on how well I'm doing it. And honestly, usually the answer is poorly. I love poorly. I love the people I love with my whole heart. I do it poorly often, and I'm sorry. And honestly, I hate it when people. I'm getting really preachy, and I know that can be really obnoxious. And that's just not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to talk about my feelings behind the song and why I wrote this song. So I hope you don't feel like I'm preaching at you. I'm just sharing some of my own thoughts and stuff. Sometimes whole seasons go by where it's like we're singing this song, and I really just want people to feel loved at the end of this song, but I honestly just sometimes feel like a fake because I don't love myself. And the whole seasons will kind of go by like that, and it's funny. It's just like a funny thing to sing to tell other people, like, you should learn to love yourself when you're not feeling that yourself. Almost like an alcoholic who's like telling, preaching at other people, you should definitely get sober. You should definitely love yourself. Even though I don't. Even though I'm not going to. But honestly, I do think words are important, and I think hopefully that proclaiming affirmation or reminders out loud has worth, I think. Like smiling when you're having a bad day can be, helpful to actually changing your mood, or repeating truth that you don't feel so that you don't repeat the same lies to yourself every day. And so I try to think of this song of the same thing as, like, even when I'm not actively living in what I'm saying or actively feeling what I'm saying, that, it doesn't mean I'm fake. It just means that I need to continue to say, work on believing these things. And that they do still have worth even if I'm struggling with them. But we've been ending with this song a lot lately because I feel like, this is kind of the most important message or the most important story we had to bring to the table every night, which is like, you're loved. Learn to love yourself, and it is going to change the way that you can love other people. I don't know. That's my 2 cents about the song Eastbound and the inspirations and the lyrics behind it. If you have any more questions or other things you want to know or comments, let me know. If there's something you want me to be doing differently in these inspiration videos or anything like that, I really just want to let you guys know information about the songs, and I get so many questions about them, and so I'm happy to answer any questions or talk more or less or anything like that. But thank you so much. This has been my song inspirations number 2, Eastbound.